And today, we have among us one of the most revered youth icons who will enlighten us on the topic of the role of the youth in ushering a new India. Member of Parliament, Shri Varun Gandhi. Welcome, sir. We also have with us on stage today Dr. Prashant Bhalla, President, Manav Rachna Educational Institutions, Dr. Amit Bhalla, Vice President, Manav Rachna Educational Institutions, Dr. N.C. Vadva, Vice Chancellor, Manav Rachna International University, Dr. Sanjay Srivastav, Vice Chancellor, Manav Rachna University, Dr. Nemo Dhar, Dean, Faculty of Media Studies and Humanities. I heartily extend a warm welcome to our esteemed guests, dignitaries, and our dear students. Dear students, this interaction today is about you, the youth of the country. The Indian youths today are an active part of nation building, be it through their entrepreneurial success, the power of the ballot, or even the double-edged sword of social media.
स्पीड कौन करेगा
We are grateful to him that in spite of his very busy and tight schedule, he has made it to the campus today to address you, to motivate you, to guide you, and share his thoughts and ideas with you.
Dr. Prashant Bhalla ji, Dr. Amit Bhalla ji, Dr. Kathuria ji, Dr. N.C. Vadva ji, Dr. Sanjay Srivastav ji, Brigadier Anand ji, and Ranjan Sodhi. What I'd like to speak to you about today is, there's an ancient Chinese proverb which is that they assume that times are never perfect, but they say that times, while never perfect, should ideally be interesting. Today we live in fascinating times. It's a wonderful time to be young. You can lead the narrative, you can direct change, and you can do so on your own terms. And this is really what I want to speak to you about. There is a belief, a mistaken belief, that young people have a sense of inertia in them, that they have a sense of distance from public policy, from public life, from social activism. But that's not the truth at all. If you look at the history of independent India, you'll always see young people at the forefront of every major change. Many of you may not know this, but the first informal student group in India was made in 1828 at the Hindu College in Delhi. And it was called the All India Students Association. And it was built to ensure two things. One, to formalize women's education, and the second, to put an end to superstitious practices, something that unfortunately hasn't ended even today. And the first formal political organization of students was formed in 1936 in Lucknow. It was called the All India Students Federation. And interestingly, it's the last time that Gandhi, Nehru, Sardar Patel, Maulana Azad and Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose ever shared a stage together. It was on the formation of the first Indian student organization in Lucknow. And this student organization really gave, if you want to look at how students have been important, some of you may not know this. The first Parliament of India was elected in 1952. This first student organization of India contributed 45 members of parliament in the first Indian parliament in India. Which means there was a time in India where young people could be cherry-picked on the basis of their talent and ability and given a place right at the forefront of national advocacy. And this movement, this Students' Association, led to hartals, jail bharo andolans, religious integration councils, female integration councils, and it was a progressive movement, as was our national movement. You don't have to look so far. Look at 1973. I wasn't born in 1973, I suspect neither were a lot of you. And in 1973, Gujarat had its Nav Nirman Andolan, which was India's first anti-corruption movement, where students of Ahmedabad University said the food is bad, the living conditions are bad, we're overpriced, and girls weren't allowed to go out beyond 3 p.m. There were lots and lots and lots of problems. And they did a massive protest. This was formed under the aegis of lawyers, of journalists, of social activists, but it was led by students. And they started in 1973, and in 1974, it became the Nav Nirman Yuvak Samiti. And it became so powerful that the chief minister of the time, who was an elected chief minister, had to resign. And it's the first and only time in India that a student protest or a mass protest has led to the dissolution of an elected government. In fact, it's probably the first time anywhere in India, and the last time. You know, you look at any movement, today the issue of environment has become the most important issue of our times. We live in the most polluted city in the world. I have a 3-year-old daughter. Every week she gets ill with some respiratory problem or not. I suspect those of you who have young children or who will have young children will encounter this. And what we see these days is that it's very fashionable all over the world. Everybody's talking about tree planting, everybody's talking about turning vegetarian, everybody's talking about these things. But look at India. In the 1960s, we started a Chipko movement. From a small village in Uttarakhand called Reni, Chandi Prasad Bhatt and Sundar Lal Bahuguna started the movement. And it went, to quote today's terminology, completely viral. And it went so viral that Uttarakhand banned the felling of trees, the cutting of trees, officially for 15 years. Now remember, this was before internet, it was before cellular phones, it was before anything. Today, we have 900 million phones in our country, 250 million smartphones, 150 million people on Facebook, 160 million people on WhatsApp. The opportunity for mobilizing is tremendous. Look at what happened in Bangalore. Young people said that there's a steel flyover being built, and 1,800 of the oldest trees in Bangalore are going to be cut. And they got together with an NGO and they started a movement, and they just sent WhatsApps to 900 prominent people, and they said, please send this forward. 1.8 lakh people registered their protest on change.org, and 1 week later, 10,000 people in Bangalore formed a human chain around those trees. And what happened? Ultimately, the government had to bow down before young people, and they said, okay, now we'll build that flyover, but we won't cut a single tree while doing so. So this is people power for you. Look at the fact that, look at net neutrality. Net neutrality is a completely youth-driven movement. So one day telecom companies wake up and they say, A, you can't access the internet in its purest form. B, to do so you've got to pay double. And young people all over the country, without any backing, protested against this. And not only young people from India, by the way. 300 million people on the internet protested against this. 28 lakh people in India sent detailed responses to the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India against the imposition of an unfair and unfree internet. And what happened? The government had to bow down, and today net is neutral. You know, I travel a lot across the country, and I come across the most amazing young people, and I want to tell you about some of them today, who are ordinary, working class people who've made a tremendous change in their own way. I was in Bengal, and I came across a man called Babar Ali. And Babar Ali is called by BBC and CNN as the world's youngest headmaster. And why is he called that? Because at the age of 9, this child was the only child to be sent to school from his village. It's a village called Pucca in in Malda, Murshidabad. And he was sent to school, and he saw the rest of the kids in his school, in his village. Somebody was grazing cattle, somebody was working to become a mechanic, somebody was just, idling away their time. And he said, let me do one thing. Every day when I go to school, whatever I learn, I'm going to come back at the age of 9 and teach the other kids in my village. Whatever I learned that day. And he requested his school, he said, whatever chalk is broken and left, can I have that? And he built a blackboard out of broken terracotta tiles. And he used newspapers that people had thrown away as writing material. And this child, at the age of 9, started teaching people under a guava tree, which I saw. And many years passed, and people recognized his amazing effort, and he got the CNN Changemaker of Asia award, and they gave him $50,000. Now anybody else would have bought a house, bought a car, because remember he was the son of a very marginal farmer. But he said, no, now I'm going to formalize this process and I'm going to build a school. And so where he was teaching 8 people, today there's a school for 800 people. And this young child started this, and today out of the children that he taught, because he's 23 years old now, 24 years old, 80 of them have now become teachers and now going to different villages to teach children. I just found it so amazing that people with no advantages, people with significant disadvantages, rather than being bitter and angry and frustrated, can say, okay, this is what life is. Life has given me lemons and I'm going to make lemonade out of it. And this is the amazing thing about young people in India today. I came across an example of a young man called Shri Varun, who was born in a small village in Andhra Pradesh called Sita Ramapuram. And Shri Varun was born blind, completely blind. And his school, he wanted to study science. And his school said, I'm sorry, you can't do science in your 10+2 because you're blind and you can't do experiments. It's going to be very difficult for us to teach you all this, and you'll have a disadvantage, you don't want to do it. He went to court, and the court ruled in his favor. And then he did science in 10+2, and he got 99%. And he topped the whole state of Andhra Pradesh. And then he wanted to go to IIT. And IIT said, no, we don't want to take you. And they refused to let him sit for the entrance exam. Because they said, you know, it's very rigorous. We don't have living conditions for blind people. You know, you won't be able to do the whole curriculum. And so he said, okay. And he applied to MIT. And he's the first Indian student to ever get a full scholarship from MIT. And he's totally blind. And he topped MIT. He became the gold medalist at MIT. And I've been to MIT, so I've checked the story out. Because you can't believe everything you read on the net these days. And he topped MIT, and everybody, Oracle, Google, Facebook, they all went to him and said, listen, please work with us. And he said no, and he came back to India, and he started an industry called Bolland Industry. And today it's a 200 crore industry. And the amazing thing about this industry is that he hires 80% blind people and handicapped people. Yeah, I was just so amazed at this. Abhi aapko photo lena hai, le lijye. Their children have to eat too. So, part of the game. So, you know, we talk about the amazing things that we see. And I was in Punjab about 10 days ago. And I came across an example of a young girl called Bisman Diu. I hope I've got the name right. As a 15-year-old girl, daughter of a farmer, and she saw that every cropping season, they would burn the wheat and rice husk. And the major cause of pollution in North India is actually the burning of wheat and rice husk. And she said, what can we do with this? So she said, okay, I'm going to test out with some people from my village who have a little more scientific knowledge than me, that what can we do with this? And they found that it has a very high silica content. And it was essentially waterproof, and also it was termite resistant. So she said, why can't we make a wood out of this? Why can't we make affordable housing out of this? Because it's inexpensive and there's like tons of it lying around. So she got together with certain people from Punjab Agricultural University, and they patented something called green wood. And today, Larry Ellison from Oracle, he heard about this. This is so amazing that he put her up on all their sites in Oracle, promoted them. And Hewlett Packard, HP, did a social relay innovation. And out of 43,000 students in India, in the world, she won. So today, Hewlett Packard and Oracle have got a deal going, and they're going to build 1,000 houses for poor people out of this patented green wood that this 15-year-old girl made. A similar example in Odisha of a very, very poor child called Lalita Srisai, who would go around her village and she would find that they would grow corn. So people would eat it and then they would just throw the bhutte ka chilka, the corn cob. And she said, you know, the whole village is getting dirty and polluted because of this. She said, what can we do with this? So they found out that it's an excellent, absorbent of all kinds of contaminants. Things like, oil, things like dye, things like salt oxide. So she said, what can we do with this? So she said, if we pass, water, dirty water, polluted water, through several layers of these corn cobs, and we do it correctly, we can actually rid them of all their contamination. And nobody cares about them. They're abandoned. A lot of them are abandoned by their families. Even the ones that live with their families can't afford to take care of them, so they beg, they do rag picking, And I came across an amazing example of hope. That an 18-year-old girl who was a rag picker called Chandini tied up with an NGO called Chetana. And they started a newspaper called Balak Nama, which is just stories of hope, stories of failure, stories of tragedy for young street children. And today this paper sells 8,000 copies. It's given free to all police stations in Delhi. It's given free to all government offices and government schools in Delhi. I would suggest, Dr. Saab, you have a look at this paper. It's called Balak Nama, and there are 20 journalists, and they're all under the age of 15. And they're taught by this NGO, and they do this citizen journalism. And they travel across Delhi in these jhuggi jhoplis, in small low-income group housing, and they meet young people on the streets, and they ask them, what are your problems? Are you facing police brutality? Are you facing sexual abuse? Are you facing, any kind of challenges, which are obviously there? And they do things like policy advocacy. So at one level, they make Aadhaar cards for them. And the other place is that you get to know about all over the country. So for instance, I read an example in Mandala in Madhya Pradesh, where the district administration officially was using little children to clean the carcasses of dead animals and dead people from the railway tracks, which is totally illegal. And so they call them and name them and shame them, and that's not happening anymore. Another example of youth activism in media is this organization I read about, so-called Youth Ki Awaaz, which is a website started by somebody called Anshul Tiwari. And the reason I got to hear of this was this amazing campaign called Ready to Bleed, Happy to Bleed, which was, there's this insane thing in India where when women and young girls go through menstruation, that they're not allowed in any religious places, which to me is madness, because if God made us and God made women the way they are, then why would God deem a certain part of the month impure for women or unclean for women to enter temples and religious structures? It's an insane thing. And yet this is going on. So Youth Ki Awaaz posted Nikita Azad's letter, which was against Sabrimala, in Kerala. And it highlighted that, how women are not, they don't have a lack of purity, and they can go wherever they want, whenever they want. And I just came across this. I want to ask all of you a question. Have any of you ever filed an RTI? Anybody here ever filed an RTI? Okay, not a lot. Look, the RTI is the biggest gift we've been given in independent India. We've reached a stage in India today where people want increased transparency, increased accountability, and a deepened democracy. But how do you do it? It's just a pipe dream if you sit in your house and watch television. The fact is that RTI allows you to challenge people like me. Let's say I've come back from abroad just now. You can file an RTI saying that, okay, you went abroad, who paid for your ticket? How many times have you been abroad in the last 1 year? Who's paid for your stay? The fact is, I'm an elected official, right? I'm responsible to all of you. I may be an MP of a constituency in UP, but the fact is, I am a member of Parliament of the Union of India. And the time has come where people like me have to be held responsible for their actions at every level. I heard about this 10-year-old girl from Lucknow called Aishwarya Parashar, who actually became famous because she asked a question, who called Mahatma Gandhi the father of India? But I wasn't so impressed by that. What I was impressed by was Lucknow was suffering from swine flu in 2010 very badly. It was a huge epidemic. And this girl studied in a school at the age of 10 And right next to her school was a massive garbage dump. So she wrote to the chief minister, but they didn't reply. And then she filed an RTI saying that how can I have the biggest garbage dump next to a school where all the kids are falling ill? Within 15 days, the garbage dump was removed, and today the biggest modern library has been built in that place. That's the power of RTI. I heard about two examples I want to give you recently. One about in Nizamabad in Telangana, these little children of beedi workers, beedi laborers, and they were given a stipend, scholarship by the government, by the Labour Department, by the Social Welfare Department, and they didn't get their scholarship on time. So a 10-year-old kid called Manoj filed an RTI saying, why haven't my other friends come to school for 3 months? I missed them, where are they? And they found out that they hadn't come because their scholarships hadn't come on time. And then they found out why their scholarships hadn't come on time. And it was an amazing example of government negligence, which was that 60,000 children in the state of Telangana, it's not a small number, who were given this scholarship because they were beedi laborers' children, hadn't got it because one office department had shifted to the others and all the files had been lost in the interim. So they just forgot about it. So these kids would have just had to forego their entire education because of government being lax. I heard about another example of a girl in Marwari college in Ranchi called Sabah Parveen, who filed an RTI saying that, I'm supposed to have got a scholarship under the minority quota, and for 2 years I haven't got this scholarship. And it turned out that somebody in Jharkhand had taken the entire money, put it into a fake account with the same name of the girl, and was just swallowing the money for 2 years. I think if nothing else, we're very good at this kind of innovation in our country. See, there are new types of citizen engagement, and this is what I want you to listen to, because this is what's going to be very important for you going forward. The world is changing, citizen engagement with governance is changing. I want to give you two examples of something I just read about in Europe. Italy started something called Moniton, which is a mixture of marathon and monitor. And they said every piece of money that comes in from the European Union to be spent, 90% of it is spent on infrastructure. And they said what we're going to do is we're going to put every piece of data as open government data on the net. And every piece of open government data is going to be available to the public. Let's say they're building a flyover. So they said, firstly, we're going to put how much we're going to spend. Secondly, the amount of people that are employed, their names and phone numbers, so you can check whether they're really doing their work. Thirdly, the amount of money spent every day on that project, that's going to be listed every single day. Fourth, any person in Italy can file a complaint or a request for information about any aspect of the project, and by law, government has to answer them in full and final within 24 hours. They found that where there were high levels of corruption in the country, after this project, Moniton, which you should look up, 90% of corruption has gone because of citizen involvement. In Germany, there's something called Parliament Watch, which is compulsory now, that every MP has to go on Parliament Watch and answer questions once a week. And today what has happened, see, let's be honest, most people in India don't even know who the MP is. They don't even know who the MLA is. Forget about involvement, they don't even have the faintest idea who they are. And why is that? It's because we don't see ourselves as a part of the system. We don't see ourselves as stakeholders. We feel that we don't have any power, we're citizens. the word citizen is the most powerful word in the English dictionary. It was made by the Romans to talk about an enlightened level of public involvement. But today, we have a long way to go. This Parliament Watch tracks not only MPs' voting records and how many times they speak, which is being done even by PRS in India, but the most important thing that it does is that it forces members of Parliament to answer uncomfortable questions. And those that say we don't want to come and we don't want to answer uncomfortable questions, their names are put right in front. That this person refused to come, this person has cheated the system and his constituency. And it puts so much moral pressure. And I thought, okay, how many people will actually go to a site like this, right? Not many. Turns out that in a small country like Germany, it gets 1.5 million unique views every month, which is not bad at all. The fact is that we have to now look at the next step of youth entrepreneurship, which is of social entrepreneurship. Young people today want to make money. They want to make a load of money. There's nothing wrong with that. Can we have a system where you make a lot of money, plus you help the system, plus you do a lot of good? Everywhere in the world, this is the new trend that you have to look at. I came across a young man who I met, was very impressed by him, called Durgesh Nandan. Durgesh Nandan was in Lucknow, and he saw that people who drive auto rickshaws drive them for 30, 40 years, and yet they don't own them. They're just almost like slavery. They work 18 hours a day. And he said, why can't these people own their auto rickshaws? Why can't they have dignity of labor? And he made a company called Automotion Ads. And Automotion Ads is very simple. You can advertise on the side of an auto or a rickshaw, and 80% of money will go to the rickshaw driver, 20% of money will go to the owner and to Durgesh Nandan's company. And just because of this one company, Automotion Ads, 300 auto drivers and rickshaw pullers in the last 2 years now own their own vehicles and have started a life of dignity and honor for themselves. I came across a website and a phone application service called Haq Darshak, run by a young boy called Aniket Deoghar, who said government has so many schemes, some excellent schemes, but nobody knows what they are. So on Haq Darshak, if you go, you type in your name, your gender, your caste, your age, your economic status, it will actually tell you all the government schemes that you're entitled to, which I thought is a wonderful thing for young people and old people all over in poorer parts of India. And I actually found one woman and I called her up. And she was from near Pune. And I called her and I said, look, I'm so-and-so speaking, and I want to ask you, because you're registered on this, has it helped you? And she said, it has. She said, earlier I was getting 800 rupees a month as a pension because of Haq Darshak, which told me everything that I'm legally entitled to. Now I'm getting 2,500 rupees a month. And I thought, wonderful. And it charges you a small nominal fee, because otherwise, how will it run? But for that fee, it will fill up your forms, it will send them to the government departments, and it will do all the background checking so that your paper doesn't get lost in translation. And I thought that was a wonderful thing. I came across another example of a young person called Navneet Ranjan, who came back from America to Dharavi to do a documentary. And he said, why should I do a documentary on these poor people? Why don't I just help them out? And he started teaching them English, science, social studies over the weekends. But he said, okay, this is not good enough, because it's not going to empower them the way they need to be empowered. They need to be financially self-sufficient. So he made them learn coding, computer coding, and he taught them how to make apps on the MIT App Inventor. And today, 80 girls because he did it only with girls. And 80 girls have made apps that not only are making money, but actually that have been celebrated and awarded. I just want to give you two examples of this. One girl called Ansuja Madhiwal at the age of 16 made an app which is called Women Fight Back. And what that does is it's an emergency SMS alert to 500 of your contacts. It also does location mapping, so it tells people exactly where you are, and it has a distress alarm which goes directly to your nearest police station. And this app in Bombay is now used by everybody. It was done by a 15-year-old girl in a slum, in the largest slum in India. And the other is by a 14-year-old girl called Fawzia Aslam Ansari, called Pani Hai Jeevan, which was an app because everybody fights over water, particularly in JJ colonies and slums. So what this does is it ties up with the pump engineers, the valve operators, and it tells you exactly when the water will come that day and for how long, for how many minutes, and then it divides that up and it creates your turn. So it's got, say, 300 turns a day. So it tells you, okay, you can today fill water for 17 minutes from this time to this time, and then after you will come this person, and before you will come this person. And so it actually led to a lot of social harmony in that area. You know, and then of course everybody's heard of Feeding India, which was Ankit Quatra, who just take waste food from marriages and marriage halls and hotels and give them directly to the hungry. And this session, I've actually moved a bill in Parliament to take all the waste food in Parliament, which is a lot, and give it to poor people who live in slums actually near Parliament in central Delhi. See, when I joined politics, I was very young, and I had no idea what I should do, what my voice is, what my contribution can be. But almost a decade later, I realized that politics is not about winning and losing elections. That's actually immaterial. Politics is about finding a voice and giving young people that voice, creating social change. When I won my second election, I said, okay, what's the biggest problem of our time? It's farmer suicides. 70% of India does agriculture. If agriculture is not viable anymore, this country is going to be in its biggest employment and poverty crisis in the next 15 years. And so I said, what can we do? So we did local crowdfunding. I said, okay, I'll give a crore of my own money. And we went from place to place to place in UP, giving people information of farmers who were destitute, why they were destitute, how we could rescue them, how we could put them back on their feet so that recidivism doesn't take place. And like this, we raised 20 crore rupees in over 1 year, which we used to make 4,000 farmers entirely debt-free. And the kind of joy this gave me, winning elections could never give me that joy. And my next goal, which I'm going to discuss with you, is building 1,000 houses for people who've never lived in pucca houses in 20 districts. And I want to do this in the next 6 months. And I want to take this first from take 1,000 houses and then go to 10,000 houses. And I don't want to take more than 1,000 rupees from any one person. Because see, I can go to an industrialist and I could say, can you give me 1 crore rupees? But that's not the way to create movements. The way to create movements is not to go to rich people and ask them for a handout. The way to create movements is to involve maximum people in them, take very little amount of money from each person, so that people not only who care can do something about it, but actually people believe that they have a share and a stake in the future of our country, and they feel empowered. And once you feel empowered, the next stage is that you can fly. That's how life is. And I just want to end my interaction to you today by saying that I just got off a flight from England. I came straight here. The reason I came here, I mean, this is an enormously prestigious institution, and I'm deeply grateful to Dr. Bhalla for giving me the opportunity to come here. And I'm deeply grateful to all of you for listening to me. I feel very urgent about the way things are today. And I feel that on one hand, we have a lot of movement in the right direction. But I also feel that there's a large part of India that should not and cannot be left behind. And so in our thoughts and in our actions and in our beliefs, while we, spend money on eating out, and while we spend money on, music and DVDs and films and whatever else, which is great, let's keep the face of that last man in society in our mind. Because sooner or later, if that last man falls, this whole system will start falling like dominoes. And so my request to you is, lead and direct that change. Help people less unfortunate than you. Dream big. Fight for your dream. You are living at a time where you can easily achieve that dream. If people like me can be of any service to you, I'd like you to reach out to me on my Twitter and Facebook, which is called Varun Gandhi 80, and reach out to me and follow the work I do and tell me what I should be speaking about in Parliament, what I should be speaking about, what issues I should be fighting about. I've come here not just to talk to you, but also to learn from you. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your anecdotal journey with us. It was an extremely inspirational, engaging session. May I now request all the dignitaries on stage to please present Shri Varun Gandhi with the shawl and memento. I now invite Dr. Nemo Dhar, Dean, Faculty of Media Studies and Humanities, who has been an administrator par excellence and now an academician, and is well known in the field of public relations and media handling. Ma'am, please deliver the word of thanks.
Member Parliament, Dr. Prashant Balaji, President, Manav Rachna Group of Institutions, Dr. Amit Balaji, Vice President, Manav Rachna Group of Institutions, Dr. Katuria, Trustee, MRIU, Dr. N.C. Vadva, Vice Chancellor, MRIU, Dr. Sanjay Srivastav, MD, MRIEI, and VC, MRU, dear colleagues and students. Sir, I, on behalf of the Faculty of Media Studies and Manav Rachna Group of Institutions, thank you for sparing time to be with us and sharing your views on as to how the youth of this country can contribute in realizing the dream of New India. No doubt, the instruments of empowerment of youth were very well described by you, like RTI, which gives the power of not only taking a decision or knowing a decision, but the basis of that particular decision, which finally ushers in accountability and transparency in governance. No doubt, sir, your words will inspire our young students to work hard for a new India. Thank you, sir, for your guidance and inspiration to our students. I also extend my thanks to our Honorable President, Dr. Prashant Balaji, and Vice President, Dr. Amit Balaji of MR Group of Institutions, for their dynamism and leadership, because of which the Manav Rachna institutions are progressing by leaps and bounds and are able to shape the future citizens of India. Katuria sir, with his experience and expertise, has always been helpful and has been always guiding the institutions. Thank you, sir. My thanks are also due to Dr. N.C. Vadva, Vice Chancellor, MRIU, but for whose untiring efforts and guidance, Manav Rachna International University would not have been one of the best universities in the private sector in India. I'll be failing in my duty if I don't extend my gratitude to Dr. Sanjay Srivastav, who through his guidance and time-to-time talks has been motivating the student community to dream high and to work for the same. I would like to thank Director Administration Shri Atul for the hard work he has put in to make this mammoth event a success. I also thank children from Manav Rachna International School for their Saraswati Vandana in their sweet and heart-rending voice. I would like to express my thanks to Shri Naseer Singh Ji, political advisor to Shri Gandhi Ji, for his coordination for the event and for his eye for detail and zest for perfection. Last of all, I thank all the registrars, deans, directors, faculty members and their students who lent the requisite support for making this event a success and for lending a very patient hearing. Thank you. Thank you all of you.
May I now request everyone to kindly stand up for the national anthem.
जन गण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल गंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्छल जलधि तरंगा तब शुभ नामे जागे शुभ आशीष मांगे